Good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for finding time to be with us. The show is Diaspora Dispatches. We get to bring you the latest news from across the continent of Africa. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and it is nice to have you on board. So much has been happening, but we've been concentrating so much on the Kenyan election. So just a change for us to know what else is happening across the continent. And we start with some news from Tanzania. And Tanzania's state telecommunications firm has installed high-speed internet connectivity on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, Africa's highest mountain, through a national broadband project. Information Minister Nape Nnauye launched the internet project on Tuesday, saying tourists would soon be able to communicate worldwide from the summit of the mountain. The mountain is one of Tanzania's leading tourist destinations. Mr. Nnauye said internet connectivity on the mountain was expected to reach its highest point, Uhuru Peak, which stands at 5,895 meters, or about 19,341 feet above sea level in October. And then we head over to still in some news from related to Tanzania, and heads of states from the SADC. Heads of states from the Southern Africa Regional Bloc SADC will today meet in the Democratic Republic of Congo for talks in economic growth and integration. A dozen heads of state arrived in the capital Kinshasa on Tuesday to participate in the two-day summit, which opens today. The leaders will discuss how to promote industrialization through the transformation of agriculture, the development of mineral resources, and the development of value chains at the regional level. DR Congo also intends to seek assistance of the bloc to restore peace and security in its territory. Another aim of the summit is the handover of the bloc leadership to the Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi by the current head of the bloc, Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera. We go to Zimbabwe, and a member of parliament from the ruling party, ZANU-PF party, has been arrested over fraud and money laundering claims involving $5 million. State-run newspaper Herald reports Justice Mayor Yena was arrested on Tuesday alongside four others, who include suspended officials of the Cotton Company of Zimbabwe. They were arrested by officers from the Zimbabwean Anti-Corruption Commission. No details of how they're given. The five are expected to appear in court on Wednesday. The newspaper reports the state-controlled cotton buying and processing enterprise has recently been rocked by claims of theft of farm inputs and diversion of funds. And then we head over to Sierra Leone, and a prominent critic of the government has been killed during a police raid, raising serious concerns about extrajudicial killings and accusations of targeting opposition figures. It happened when officers were in the hideout of alleged suspect behind last week's violent protest. According to the police, Hassan Dumbuya, popularly known as Evangelist Samson, and a member of the All People's Congress, was killed when officers exchanged gunfire with a neighborhood group in the capital Freetown. Police also say they received intelligence that ex-Civil War combatants were planning an attack, so they arrested 4 people and confiscated what they said was a light submachine gun. President Julius Maada Bio has said the protests were an attempt to overthrow his government and the perpetrators will face justice. 21 civilians and 5 police officers were killed during the violent protest over the rising cost of basic goods. Rights groups have called for an independent investigation into the protest. Others have paid tribute to Dumbuya while disputing the police's version of events. We head over to Tunisia, and the final results of a controversial referendum granting unchecked powers to the country's President Kais Saied showed 94.6% of votes in favor, the electoral authority said on Tuesday. Voters overwhelmingly approved the new constitution, the electoral board said, officially announcing definitive results from the July 25th poll. The charter was approved by just over 2.6 million people, the board's president Farouk Bouska told reporters. Turnout was considered very low at 30.5%. The referendum came a year to the day after Said sacked the government and froze parliament in what rebels have branded a coup. Despite low turnout, Said's move against a system that emerged after the 2011 overthrow of dictator Zain Al-Abidine Bel Ali was welcomed by many Tunisians. Many people were fed up with the high inflation and unemployment, political turmoil and system they felt had brought little improvement to their lives. However, opposition politicians and human rights groups have warned of a return to dictatorship under the new constitution. Head over to Mali, and the Al-Qaeda-affiliated group of the Support of Islam and Muslims, GSIM, claims to have killed 4 paramilitaries from the Russian private security group Wagner in an ambush in central Mali, according to a statement authenticated on Monday by the US-based NGO SETE, which specializes in monitoring radical groups. The information was confirmed by AFP News by 2 local officials and a hospital source, while a senior Malian army official in the center has refused to validate or deny it. On Saturday, a group of Wagner mercenaries went out on motorbikes in the Bandia Gara region, starting from the village of Jalo and heading towards the mountains. Part of the statement said, in a very deteriorated security context, the junta has turned away from France and its partners, relying on Russia to try to stem the spread of jihadism, which has spread to a large part of the country as well as the neighboring Burkina Faso and Niger. Mali has called on what it describes as instructors from Russia to support its army, while Paris and Washington denounced the presence in the country of mercenaries from the private Russian group Wagner, which Bamako has denied. Russia has admitted in May that Wagner was present in Mali on a commercial basis without any link with Moscow. And then we head over to South Sudan. The European Union said its member countries will mobilize funds to support the extended transitional government in implementing the remaining benchmark of the 2018 peace accord. The bloc's head of mission in Juba, Ambassador Christian Bader, made the remarks after meeting Cabinet Minister Martin Elia Lomuro on Monday. Early this month, parties to the 2018 peace accord resolved to stay in power for the next 24 months until December 2024, where elections are expected to usher in a new government. Now, the peace signatories justified that the 2-year extension is an opportunity to implement the critical pending tasks in the agreement and avoid taking the country into a catastrophic election. However, the decision to extend the timeline of the transitional period was protested by the Troika, countries who expressed concerns over exclusive process. Diplomats from the US, UK and Norway boycotted the peace implementation roadmap meeting at the Freedom Hall, saying all relevant parties have not been consulted on the matter. In a joint statement addressed to President Salva Kiir, the foreign missions urged for the inclusion of all signatories to the agreement. Okay, and then we head over to Burundi, and Burundi has become the first country to deploy troops in the Democratic Republic of Congo as part of the recent decision by the East African Community for a joint mission against rebels. A contingent of the Burundian army officially entered Congolese soil on Monday, 15th August, and according to the Armed Forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, those soldiers will be deployed in the operational zone in the south of Kivu in eastern DRC to hunt down armed groups. The Congolese army specified that this is within the framework of the joint forces recently agreed on by the heads of state of the East African Community under the then chairmanship of Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta. Until Monday, neither the troop contributors nor the actual timelines had been known. The Burundian soldiers will be stationed at the Luberizi Training Center, about 100 kilometers from Bukavu, the largest city in South Kivu. And that is the latest news from across the continent of Africa now. Okay, Charles Munga, good afternoon too. Okay, just a couple of perhaps stories that I'd like for us to look at. Maybe I just start from the story that we've just ended with from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Remember, maybe about 2 months ago, President Uhuru Kenyatta, who was the then chair of the East African Community Bloc, and the President of Kenya had a meeting with the East African Community heads of state, and the agreement was for the East African Community to constitute some troops to be taken to try and help in the peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, That has not happened yet, but that was the agreement the last time they had a meeting over this, and I don't know how this will continue happening because, our President Kenyans, we had our elections, and right now there are really things President Uhuru Kenyatta can't really do because we do have a president-elect, but as we know, the opposition leader Raila Odinga and the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition has gone to court to challenge, the results of that election. And so the president is just there, but the things now he can't really do, as far as his powers are concerned. And I don't know if he can still engage in this peace mission, but I think the East African community, appointed him or something like that to continue helping in the mediation process. But I think when he was the chair of the East African community, it was much easier for him to call meetings and do that as a head of state and the leader of the EAC. But now, after the talks, no country has moved swiftly. Okay, we know Kenyan troops are there, but that was a unilateral, not a unilateral, but a bilateral agreement between Kenya and the DRC. And also, Uganda did send its troops last year in November. That was also a bilateral agreement, so it was not under the EAC umbrella. So it was important then, President Uhuru Kenyatta presented, that the EAC bloc put up one strong army, contributed by all the member states, to go into the Democratic Republic of Congo and try to help in fighting the rebels and also just restoring peace and order. The history of the turmoil and the civil war and the rebel attacks and all that in the DRC, it's way long, so I'll not bore you and get you into the details of that right now. But it is interesting, and by the way, Uganda had said that the agreement with it and DRC was to last for about 6 months. I think they were saying they will pull out. I don't know if they have, but they had expressed that their time there is up and they wanted to get out of Burundi, out of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And there are a section of citizens in the DRC who, after that announcement was made by President Uhuru Kenyatta, protested that move, and they said if anybody should go to the DRC to help them, those people should not, Burundi, Rwanda, and Uganda should not be part of that army or should not bring in their soldiers in the DRC because they accused these three countries of having interest in the Democratic Republic and have been part of the people who have been fomenting, supporting, equipping logistically and otherwise these rebels that have continued to cause instability in that part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Again, if you look at the history of each country, Burundi and Rwanda, Uganda and of course, Burundi and DRC, Rwanda and DRC, Uganda and DRC, there is some history there that would understand when you look at the recent, the previous things that have happened and how perhaps these countries, why these citizens in the DRC would find it uncomfortable for any soldiers from these three countries to go into the DRC. I think there is some point there. As I said, the war in the Democratic Republic of Congo is quite multifaceted. And if you start looking at the history one by one of each country and how that relates to what is happening, it's a lot going on in there. So for Burundi to be the first country to send its troops to the Democratic Republic of Congo, I think that is quite interesting. And I don't know, Tanzania has not shown quite a lot of interest in wanting to be part of that, although we know also Tanzania has a bilateral agreement as well with the DRC as far as its soldiers in that country is concerned. So I don't know what is the problem why they can't bring in East African community a troop, just one solid troop with clear instructions so that they can go in there and try to help the DRC. I think that is the place that is the point I don't really understand. If all these countries have bilateral agreements, why are the rest not joining? I would understand why perhaps South Sudan, we can excuse South Sudan. South Sudan has its own problems to deal with as far as trying to keep that country, I think, safe, so we can excuse South Sudan soldiers from not being part of that contingent. But the rest of the countries, what is the problem? Why have we not seen a strong army made up of Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and which other country? In the Democratic Republic of Congo, remember the DR just recently joined the East African Community, and so somehow we now have been sucked into this. And as a bloc, if one member state has a problem, I think the rest of us have a responsibility. That is how we've seen these economic blocs working all over the world. So it becomes a concern. You've seen ECOWAS trying to put up fires in member states in the West African, a part of Africa, because there are a lot of countries there that have issues to do with extremism and other issues, and the coups that have happened and the coup attempts, and we've seen they handle that. So you find yourself you find yourself being drawn into this problem. So now the issue of the Democratic Republic of Congo, insecurity and the instability and all the mess that is going on up in there, has become something that now is of interest, and now the East African community must address, whether we like it or not. Otherwise, what is going to happen? It's part of us now. So as part of the DR, citizens had said they don't want Burundi's soldiers to go there, because Burundi, they've accused Burundi. Remember, Burundi has its own history as far as the war that we've seen over there. They've had their own history, and even now they're still dealing with that. The issue of ethnic cleansing between the Hutus and the Tutsis. Tutsis, even in Burundi, they are the minority. And I think their problems also goes way back when, during the colonial era, when the colonialists had favored one community, that is the Tutsis, and they are the minorities, at the expense of the larger community, that is the Hutus. And the Tutsis were given privileges, they were allowed to access perhaps good education and things like that. And the Hutus, which are the majority, still even in Burundi today, were meant to be servants and hold, the low-level job, job groups and things like that. So that is the divide and rule that we saw happening in a lot of African countries during the colonial period, and that is the history that has continued to torment a country like Burundi. So it's not all the way stable, and I was just watching some documentaries just some hours ago that showed how even many coups have taken place in Burundi itself. So in itself, it's not very stable, Burundi as we know it, and they also have a history of the ethnic polarity between the Hutus and the Tutsis. So if you're going to bring them in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and that part of the DR and the war that we've seen continue has to do with these two communities, the Tutsis and the Hutus. They're the center, whatever it is they're fighting for, but they have been divided on these lines. So what are you doing? You're bringing a country that is already polarized within those ethnic lines, and you're expecting them to come in and be fair and not really target one side of the divide in this regard, because we know that has been the case. Rwanda, on the other hand, has been accused of also supporting the M23 rebels, which is made up of Tutsis. And of course, Uganda has been accused of hosting some of these Tutsi rebels, in Uganda and things like that, and supporting them and things like that. So they have countries already, like Burundi and Rwanda, that's already divided, and they looking at, they already have their own problems as far as these ethnicities are concerned. And then you expect them to come into the Democratic Republic of Congo and try to help you deal. Of course, they will take sides. And I feel like the soldiers from one community will try to defend, and the soldiers from the other, from their own community, when they get to the Democratic Republic of Congo, because that is what is happening. The DRs themselves also, they do have a community, Tutsis over there, two types. The one from southern part of Kivu, and the other Tutsis from Rwanda. So it's I don't think these three countries really should be involved. If you ask me, especially Rwanda and Burundi, they should stay out of any peace efforts in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They will take sides because of the history of these countries and the ethnic balkanizations that have happened in these countries as far as those two communities is concerned. And the same thing is at the core of what we see happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but also among other issues and other international interests that has continued to fuel that conflict. So I would understand. So it is interesting that Burundi will be the first country to deploy troops there. So I don't know how they were received, but they did that on Monday. That was yesterday. Now, it is some good news in the in South Sudan, but also I'm really shocked with the fact that parties in the 2018 peace accord resolved to stay in power for the next 24 months until December 2024. Remember, South Sudan was supposed to go to its elections this year, and then earlier last year, I remember, around February or March or thereabout, President Salva Kiir said, we can't really be talking about elections right now, and the country is not ready for its elections because of several other factors that he stated. And then they said we can push the elections that was meant to be happening in 2022 to 2023. Okay? And I said, okay, let's dissect the issue of South Sudan as it is today. Obviously, having an election in South Sudan will be a daunting task. The people who are languishing in the refugee camps, even inside South Sudan itself, I think the last thing they want to hear is elections, because we saw where the elections brought them to, as far as that is concerned, And so they would want the government first to sort out the issue of security so that people can go back to their homes. And then after that, other things that are also very important part of this revitalized peace agreement of 2018 can be implemented. And then the country can be set towards where now they can have a proper elections and things like that. But when you look at how things have been happening in South Sudan, and I've said this and I will repeat it, there seems to be a deliberate effort from the leadership of South Sudan and the stakeholders of not wanting to have these elections, because one, they know that if a free and fair elections were held in South Sudan, they don't stand a chance as far as being re-elected or elected by the people is concerned. So what they do now, because I think the people of South Sudan are just tired. They're just over these leaders, because of what they've proved to be standing for, and whatever it is has nothing to do with benefiting the people of South Sudan. Otherwise, a lot of these things that we've been talking about, and parts of the revitalized peace agreement, content, some of it could have been implemented by right now, but there seems to be no interest. And it is a deliberate move for them to keep finding excuse after excuse to make sure that there is no enabling condition that will allow even for an election to happen. I agree, South Sudan as it is today, I think election is the last thing they want to think about, even for the people themselves. But the leadership of South Sudan, all of them, they are accountable. All of them, I think, are responsible for what South Sudan is today. They have continued to ensure that those favorable conditions continue so that, elections cannot be held in South Sudan. You know why? Because there have been numerous reports coming from South Sudan, others from the United Nations, others from the Century Report, remember, by George Clooney, and other reports that have been coming from South Sudan that are quite credible, that shows that the leadership and these top stakeholders, they benefit a lot when South Sudan continues to be chaotic, continues to lack accountability structures, continues to function in the way that it is functioning right now at an autopilot. They're not structures. So people get to do whatever they want. The Revenue Authority gets to collect revenue. They go to different personal accounts. That is what another report said from the World Bank. the Revenue Authority has like 6 or 7 more personal accounts from individuals, which shouldn't be the case. Can you imagine that? And so they can't allow, these individuals will not allow for the people of South Sudan to have an opportunity to choose their own leaders and to forge a future they feel is best for them. They have refused to them, and so they are deliberate, and they keep postponing this. And I think I joked about that last year, and I said even these elections that have been postponed to 2023, I doubt they will happen because we lack the will from the political leaders in South Sudan. And now we see, I wasn't too wrong about that. Now they have agreed that they will stay in power for the next 24 months until December 2024. December 2024, where elections are expected to usher in a new government. I'm just lost for words. So the people of South Sudan will continue being taken from cycle to cycle of instability, of communal war, of paying prices of a war that some of them has nothing to do with it. And the UN had even offered to take care of the election expenses for next year. It's like, just give us the date, just tell us what you need, we will take care of that. And that wasn't the case. These people are not interested. So what is the people of South Sudan to do in this case? You can't keep pushing President Salva Kiir, Riek Machar, and the rest of you. You can't keep pushing. The more you push these elections with no good reason at all, the more you create an environment that cannot even allow for an election to take place, the more you refuse to really move South Sudan forward. It is the people that are hurting. Just a while ago, I was watching a news item. Remember Malong Jr. or something like that, the son of one of the close associates of Dr. Kiir, who was, I think, is serving some jail time in Uganda, the one who was flaunting money. The guy had so much money that he could not explain. And the people closer to the power, they keep benefiting. They keep doing well. They're buying houses in Nairobi here. They're buying houses in Uganda. They're buying houses all over the place. They are doing very well because the dysfunction in South Sudan serves them so well. They get to benefit. So they're refusing. They're refusing for South Sudan to be stable. They're refusing for South Sudan to move forward because that will mean that they lose out on some of the benefits they've been getting. Took Quich Lodge, thank you. I think you're from South Sudan. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining and you're saying the extension of election by Kiir and Riek is an extension of suffering of people. I agree with you. And I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed at this. Can you imagine? They're staying on until December 2024 without shame, without good reason at all, without the concern of the people. In the meantime, what are the South Sudanese supposed to do? Continue languishing continue languishing in these refugee camps. You can't even account for anything that happens in that country. Some oil money that you've been making, the government cannot account even for that. Even the little they're making, even outside of the help that they're receiving, they can't account for that. And you want to continue putting the people of South Sudan through this misery indefinitely, because I think that is the plan. The people of South Sudan demand, I think, the people of South Sudan deserves better. Pope was supposed to come there, but because of some illness, he was unable to come to South Sudan. And while Pope was getting ready to come to South Sudan, these leaders were now speeding up and making some pronouncements and appearing as if they're working and as if parts of this 2018 peace accord was being implemented. Because I feel they wanted, when Pope arrived in South Sudan, he was supposed to go there in June, then they would have something to show. Remember after Pope kissing their feet in 2019, and we thought maybe that is what they needed. In that spiritual retreat they took to Rome, after that nothing much has been able to be done, and they have refused. I think this is very deliberate. These leaders are not interested to see a stable South Sudan. These leaders are not interested to solve the issues around security. So they will continue fanning the insecurity, the communal fightings that we've seen ongoing. Another report showed, I think there's an area where there's a lot of killings. I can't remember where exactly. But there are credible reports that shown that the government in Juba sponsored the killing of its own people. So they continue funding this so that there is no a conducive environment for elections to be made. There's no conducive environment where people will feel safe enough and return to their homes. There is no conducive environment where anything meaningful can take place that will move the country and the people of South Sudan forward. I have never seen people so selfish like the leaders in South Sudan. It is shameful. It is just beyond greed. And this is just immoral, period. And I don't know what they want exactly, because South Sudanese have been through the worst. So now you keep pushing them even farther. And the people who have nothing to lose, because a lot of them, all they know is what the kind of deplorable conditions they're living in. All they had been taken out, from them. They don't have the peace. They don't have their homes. Those are people who have lost everything they know, and they're just hanging by the thread for a little hope that these leaders will have some sense and do right by their people. So you keep pushing these people to the wall like you keep doing. It will not end up so well. And it is unfortunate. We were so happy when South Sudan got its independence in 2011. We were elated here in Kenya because of the role that our country and other countries, played in to just for South Sudan to be a country. And when that was finally a reality, we all celebrated over the new country around the world. And now look, 2 years later, after that in 2013, the war broke. And looking back, I think this was orchestrated. This was, and the way that has continued working. No, these people know what they're doing. These people know what they're doing, and we have to hold these people accountable. All of them, President Salva Kiir, the first Vice President Riek Machar, and other leaders, they are responsible and they must be held accountable. They must be held accountable. Problem with that, you will sanction them, they can't go to the US, they can't do this. But unfortunately, other African countries are open to their nonsense. They will go there with their ill-gotten wealth and they will invest, they will buy homes. They will not really be affected. And because they have their own connections back at home, they will continue siphoning the country and they will continue, doing whatever it is they're doing. I think it's unfair. It is unfair to the people of South Sudan. And I don't know. I don't feel too good about this. So anyway, they have extended to the period to December 2024. It's very interesting there. A bunch of selfish leaders. I've never seen anything like this. Anyway, I think that is where I will end the show this afternoon, and then I will come back perhaps tomorrow, God willing, with more news from across the continent of Africa. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.